Hello everyone, and welcome to another Thursday question and answer session for the Teaser Tuesday for Vectorworks 2019. This feature that you just saw on Tuesday, and we'll play again in just a moment, is 2D components for hybrid objects. Now, the title, again, sounds a little mundane, but it's a big change and it changes a lot. And to help us learn what that is my friend Matt here. Who are you, Matt, and what do you do?
I'm the architectural product planner. I've been here for about 2.5 years.
And your last name? Kind of important.
Matt
Panzer
Panzer.
CAD fan. Yes.
Yeah. So previous to here, I had my own business called Panzer CAD. Did architectural works, and also developed plugins for Vectorworks, including Camera Match.
So if you ever use Camera Match, that's him. Yeah. But this feature was not one you did on your own. This was a feature you did with a lot of different people here.
Yes, this was designed with input from a lot of people. Chris Gray and I worked on the design, and we had input from many other people. The engineers, most of the engineers in the architectural team worked on this, as well as people in the core user interaction and platforms team.
Gotcha.
Quite a number of people.
Yes, at the beginning when we do the demo videos internally, we have just a big room, we get together and watch all the engineers demo their features when they're first released into the beta. And usually it's like the intro card is faces of everyone who worked on the project, and it's 2 or 3 faces. This one was just like racks of people lined up. They even had to be divided up. This is a lot of people working on this project. It touches a lot of different areas. With that, let's just go ahead and play the video, and as soon as it comes back, we'll go ahead and answer questions. I have a lot of questions already. This was a great question and answer session. We'll be able to, so I have plenty of questions preloaded already from the forums and from Facebook comments, but if you have any more, if you've already thought of them, put them in the chat now, we'll be looking at it, or if you think of any questions while we're watching the video, or after you hear any questions that I read back, feel free to ask them afterwards. Here we go. The next feature we'd like to tease from Vectorworks 2019 is known as 2D components for hybrid objects. Now, you might say 2D objects as a component already exists for hybrid objects, but what we mean is this. Currently in 2018 and older versions of Vectorworks, you have a 3D portion of a symbol or a plugin, and you have the 2D portion, and they'll display depending on which view you're using. What we've done in 2019 is expanded that. You can now do a 2D view for the top, bottom, front, back, left, and right sides of any object in Vectorworks. That's either a component of a symbol or a plugin object. Not to stop there, we went a little bit further, and this may make it into 2019, it may not, but it is intended and planned. We have the front and back cut plane, top and bottom cut plane, and left and right cut plane for when the object has been sectioned. This also integrates another set of options, which we'll cover a little bit in just a moment. What I want to show you first is how the tool actually works. So for instance, here we have a number of chairs. And in these chairs, in the top views are all the same. So no matter what rotation we have them set to, they'll get the top representation of that view. You can see that they're in top view now. These are in 2D. This is 2D geometry. It's in black. The 3D geometry we left in green to make it obvious when the viewport's showing the green geometry. Now, for these 2 other chairs here, these are tilted at an angle. These are 45 degrees. So we'll only be able to modify the ones facing oblique to the screen. And here's the model itself. So now, for instance, what if we want to edit these? And these are just duplicates of the same symbol. There's no difference between these. We'll go ahead and we'll edit the 2D components here. And it's going to bring us into this special editing mode that has its own edit dialog that lets us control it. So here we can see that we're seeing, this is what we expect when we open a regular hybrid symbol. We edited the 2D component, and we have the top plan view here. However, we can show other views. We don't need to just show the top plan. Now by default, there is no bottom, and there will be no front or back or left or right. So for instance, we'll just clear this out. What if we wanted to create this front view? What if we didn't have that library? Currently, we're not showing anything else. We're only showing what's inside this symbol as we edit it. But we can now show the reference geometry, and it is snappable, so we'll be able to snap right to it. So if we wanted to, we could take the tools, we can go through, we could trace this out and create our 2D components. However, that could take a little while. So we've also added another option. And now you can always add whatever components you want in that view. But you can also choose Generate 2D from 3D Component, and Vectorworks, usually you'll use hidden line for this, will attempt to make a 2D view for you. And it does a fairly good job. You can go in and edit it however you like. If you want to clean up some of the lines down here, you can modify this and take away a little bit of these extras. They don't necessarily need to be here. You can tune it whatever you want. You can add different bits. There's any number of things you can change here, but this generates an automatic one from the 3D for you. It attempts to do basically a convert to polygons first so that you don't have to back out and mess with a whole bunch of different editing modes. And now if we exit this group, this is now our 2D component for the front view. And if we exit that symbol, if we look at this viewport in a front view, we'll go ahead and update this viewport now. And we want to display the 2D components. So this is what it was showing before, and this is how viewports that were made in older versions will display by default. But we want to display the 2D components of the symbols here. Go ahead and update this, and we can see here, our 2D component now shows. We didn't add a left or a right, so we don't have any left or right here. They're not going to show. That's the basis of it. Another quick note is that oftentimes the front and the back might be different, but the left and the right would very often, especially for things like a chair, be the same. So if we go back to the model itself and we edit one of these chairs, edit 2D components, if we want to go to the front or the sides, I'm sorry, we want to go to the left. And if we have a symbol generated here, got that geometry, we'll go ahead and just allow that to be shown on the right. We'll exit the symbol. And then we'll go back to the top, or we'll go back to, I'm sorry, we want the front view. We'll update this. So even though we just edited the left, by default, it will mirror that left since we gave it no left content, and it will put that on the other side as well. It will simply mirror whatever geometry you did on the left or on the right. Now, you can make those individually different if you want, but this just saves you time. You don't have to build a separate one. The second part of this that we'll get into very quickly, and we're not even going through all the detail options, we're just going to go through a few things, is things called level of detail. So the problem in older versions of Vectorworks was that you would have your hybrid symbols, but there would just be one hybrid. So this is how the symbol would look. And if you changed and used a different scale, that same symbol would appear, and that same symbol would appear down here. That's a little fussy and busy for this sort of thing. For instance, this window that's sliced here, there's not enough detail. This isn't a full window detail. This one's fine, but then here, this shouldn't be so busy. It should really just be a straight line. So we don't want to have to make a different symbol for every single view. We want one symbol to be able to handle that instead. And so we want this instead. So if we go to view the interior components, this is in 2019, we now see that we have the same symbols, but they reduce in complexity as you get smaller. So we can go here and you can see that the elevation, they have pretty much the 3D generated clean 2D views. And you can see I have a very heavy-duty wall detail going on here. All the intricacies of the window are included. They're not included in this middle one, and we have a slightly simpler, but still pretty similar for the medium scale. And then for this very small simple scale, a simple line for the window, very clean lines for all this other geometry that we don't need all that detail since we're going to be looking at it in this view anyway. You don't necessarily need to obey the rules entirely for what's being shown at the various different scales. But we can do this a little automatically in the design layer as well. In previous versions, we had an option where it would hide the details when a layer scale was greater than or equal to 96 or whatever you wanted to set it to. We now have two of those. The low will be shown if it's less than this value, the medium will be shown if it's between these two values, and the high will be shown if it's above this value. So if you actively change your layer scale, the detail will update to show you that detail component one at a time. Now, for instance, this object, we can go in and we can edit the 2D components of it. We can see the top plane. We're currently showing the detail for everything, but we can show it as high, which will be everything. We can show medium, which will show less detail. We can choose what we want to include here. And then for low, it'll show low. So for instance, we can go back to high, and the way we control this is this. Anytime we click on one of these polygons or one of these objects, it's going to say display at detail level, low, medium, or high. It won't say this all the time for all polygons, just when you're editing in one of these viewport views like we are right now, where we're editing this symbol that's a component. So we could say, I don't want this lid to show in medium or low. And if we exit this symbol, we now see that it won't show, even though it's showing the high detail for the rest of the objects. So now we can see the same will actually work in 3D. So the level of detail system isn't tied just to the 2D components. It works in 3D as well. So if we change this active layer scale, We change this so we go up above 48 here. Let's see. By default, it's going to show us a different level of detail. If we go even further, we can now see we have a different level of detail, and we've switched from a toilet to a simple bucket. Now, this will change. It's not actually changing the symbol itself. It's just changing which component of that symbol is being displayed. So I can now double-click this viewport, double-click this symbol, edit the 3D component, and when I'm in this editing mode, you can see I see all the geometry, and I can choose whether I want to see the low geometry only, the medium geometry, or the high geometry. Now for this one, since I had something unusual, the little bucket instead of the toilet, if I go to all, it makes a bit of a mess and I see everything. But you have the same options here. You can choose whether you want to show them in medium or low, or which options you want them to appear in. Viewports will also have this as well. So if you go and select a viewport, this is a default of the active layer scale, which can be controlled in the document settings, document preferences. I can choose if I want to automatically display the detail levels for all design layers. Now, if I uncheck this, it will always show all objects. So for this instance that I've set up, that would be incorrect. So I can set it up so that it only shows the, it'll only show this, and I can set it up so that it won't show that low detail object at all unless I change the scale of the design layer. Not only that, but you can do different views. You can show what's in 3D with some 2D added. You can show different objects at different states of section, and there's a lot built into this tool. This is way more complex than you might normally expect out of a 1.0 feature. We basically made sure that this feature was on its 2 or 2.0, 2.5 feature set, and then we released it to you this time. And again, there's a lot more that goes into this feature, but this is a good summary of the basics of it, and questions are welcome. Thank you. And we are back. So we will get into the questions that we had first, but there's a few things that we wanted to cover first. There were a lot of questions on the forum right away, so we wanted to cover a few of the larger topics first, just because there was no need to go through each and every individual question. A lot of them were the same. So the first thing we wanted to ask, does it make this sectioning and elevation viewports faster?
Yes. Yes, when you use or display a 2D component, it's replacing that 3D geometry with the 2D planar graphic. So basically, the renderer doesn't have to look at any of that geometry anymore. It's just putting in that 2D graphic.
So it's not a post-it note on top of the 3D geometry. It's actually removing the 3D geometry from the rendering's concern entirely. Okay, good. Excellent. Excellent. The next thing is, the next big one was, a lot of people were either concerned or excited or just cautious that we had dramatically changed how top plan versus 3D views worked. Is that the case? Have we added top plan views for front and side and back everywhere?
No. There's
6
really
standard
nothing
views?
different.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing's changed in the design layer environment as far as that goes.
We've changed it just in the editing mode.
Right.
Okay, gotcha. Excellent. So the next thing, and the next big topic was auto hybrid. So there were a lot of questions on, well, first to get to the question, is this intended to replace auto hybrids? And if yes, there were a bunch of questions, and if no, there were another set. So we'll just address whichever. Is this intended to replace auto hybrid?
No, it's not. Auto hybrid is really about taking 3D geometry and automatically creating a top plane representation of it. This is just like a 2D component and 3D component of a symbol now, where you have a static graphic that's usually a symbolic version of that 3D geometry. So it's not connected to that 3D geometry.
Are we going to keep working and keep developing auto hybrid? Do we see them both progressing at the same time through versions, or what do we?
Yeah, auto hybrids will stay around for as long as they have use. If we come up with a better way to deal with it, sure, then they may go away eventually, but gotcha. For now, yeah.
But as long as they both have a use, we'll keep them around. We won't just toss one.
No, they both have a specific purpose.
Gotcha. Okay, and so for the next set of questions, we wanted to, we sort of split the questions into 2 groups. The first set will be about the 2D components feature, and the second, it's one feature, but 2 concepts are inside this feature. The 2D components we'll cover first, and then we'll cover the level of detail stuff in the second, so we don't have to keep switching gears on format here. For the first one is Mark VL, and he says, so let's say I generate a section through my model, it's a house, and I've populated it with furniture. Is the 2D part of the symbol only going to show up in certain render formats?
Yes, it will only show in a hidden line render or dash hidden line render mode. That is the only render mode that really can see these objects. Yeah.
And the section part of it will show, of course, in sections.
Of course,
Okay,
yes.
good. Yes. Oh, and to clarify, in the video at the very beginning, I state that we weren't sure if it was going to have those section components. It is.
Yes.
It is.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
it was a little flaky at the time, but I've been corrected now. It will absolutely have everything you saw.
Oh, definitely.
In 2019, to be specific. The next question is from our design on the forums. In 2019, when I create a section viewport, will the 2D cut plane mean that we can control which objects will show as a cut section? Meaning that furniture, plumbing fixtures, and etc. can be made to no longer show as being cut in section.
That really is
Sort of another feature that we
it's
kind of
another
can't.
feature that, yeah, that could be answered maybe later.
So we're not going to say no or yes. We're going to say that we can't answer it at the moment because there's another feature we haven't talked about yet that impacts that heavily. So we'll ask again in a bit. The next thing will be from Zoomer. Zoomer has many questions. Zoomer asks first, does this work for all plugin objects?
It works for essentially all hybrid
Hybrid
plugins
plugin
and
objects.
symbols. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Windows, doors, columns, and a lot of the plumbing fixtures you mentioned specifically.
Exactly.
We're focused on. Okay,
Yes.
gotcha. So all hybrid plugin objects is the intention. Will Vectorworks batch update all symbols from the library to have 6 2D views?
No.
Unfortunately, no. Yeah, no.
First, would be quite a task to do all of that.
We got big libraries. Yeah.
And there's a lot of categories of objects you may not want that or probably wouldn't want it, including furniture. We use the chair in the video as an example. However, furniture tends to be slightly off at different angles in a lot of views, so you don't really see it that often in a head-on view.
Mm-hmm.
So this lends itself more to things like plumbing fixtures that are seen in
Like the
elevations.
toilet example. It's
Yeah.
Usually it doesn't, generally you don't kick your toilet around too very often. It usually
Exactly.
is one format, yeah. And it's
Either that or
rarely
objects.
catty corner, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. And then last question from Zoomer was, will these be updated symbol components data when exported to a previous Vectorworks version, just be ignored or destroyed again if you migrate it back into 2019?
It would have to be lost because the previous file format doesn't know about this feature. So exporting it back, it's just going to have to lose those.
Gotcha. 2018 wouldn't even know how to hold it temporarily to
No.
hand it back. Okay, that's. And you certainly wouldn't want all of those levels of details and components to just be exported back to 2018 in a pile. That's certainly not going to help anything. Yeah, so yeah, we would go ahead and strip that. That's not a backwards compatible feature. I apologize if I butcher your name. This is Janberger Troost, again from the forum. When I would make a 2D copy to Polygon, can I use the same texture converted to an image as they use in the 3D part? And will this 2D version follow the same geometry?
No, not really. The command to convert the 3D to 2D is really just converting the object in a kind of a hidden line render mode.
They're not attached. Their attributes aren't attached.
They're not attached,
Okay,
and it's
gotcha.
not extracting anything else but line work
Gotcha.
from.
Gotcha. And only at that moment that you're doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Yes.
Gotcha. The next one is from Kevin McAllister. How does Vectorworks auto-generate the section views for a symbol? Can the user choose the cut plane?
No, there really isn't a cut plane. If you're in a cut, editing a cut component versus say a front or right component, there's really no difference in the way it converts that geometry.
It's
from
getting the
3D
profile
component.
of the object.
Yeah,
and you
the
can
front
edit it if
object
you
is
want.
seen
Okay.
beyond. Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha.
So there's no cut.
So again, it's mostly bespoke. You're going to craft the 2D stuff that's going to go in there. It lets you do whatever you want.
Yeah, it's just
Okay.
giving you a
You
good
don't have to
starting
follow
point.
rules of like, oh, I wish the section, like, because sometimes you'll want your cut plane to be, well, I want those elements, but also a few of these. You can now just have them. You can do whatever you want.
Exactly.
And not wait for a section to happen either, which is nice.
Yes.
Yeah. The next is from Herbie Herb on the forums. Can we add 2D objects into hybrids to make annotations in similar? I assume he means like text and things like that.
Yes, 2D objects can go in there. There are some limitations for the elevation type components because of the hidden line nature of the rendering. However, the section cut is pure 2D, so the cut components can contain pretty much any 2D geometry.
Gotcha. Also, this might seem like something you might want to put annotations in until you see one of the newer features in 2019 that's also big. One of those big shush features that isn't even getting a teaser, so you're going to be happy, I think. The next one is from Lineweight. Lineweight, you were one of the ones who had quite a few questions, and some of them were dependent on others, and some we sort of overall answered. So I'm not trying to cut you off at anything, but I got the rest of them here. One of his questions was, however, doesn't your video show up a fundamental weakness of this feature in that the 2D component can't be generated for the two chairs at 45 degrees?
It is a limitation, and this feature was really geared towards giving us good elevation type views, head-on type views for like plumbing fixtures.
So the chair as a demo is just because everyone knows what a chair looks like. They're not everyone can get it, very quickly.
Yeah, it was used because it was a very simple example, and it did expose actually some of these limitations. So it was good to show that. But the use, I think, is more like plumbing fixture elevations and sections cut through windows and doors.
The next question. Question from Jonathan Pickup in the live chat. I'm sorry. Let's finish Langwait's question first. My apologies. The next one from him was, if I auto-generate for subsequent editing 2D views of a symbol which contains complicated mesh elements, are you going to get a mess of every single triangle being drawn when you do that?
No, you'll get it as it would be when you inline render it.
With some nice smoothing applied to it.
With smoothing, and it actually does a better job. If you have smooth solid geometry or curved solid geometry that's good quality, it will actually extract curved 2D geometry.
Oh, so it won't just do that faceted single.
No,
It'll just nice.
No.
It'll be nice and smooth. Okay, good.
Yeah, which
Excellent.
makes it for much easier editing.
Excellent. Thank you. The next thing here is so there's some live questions now. The one from Zeno, but yeah, it's going. We're making the libraries. He asks, how's it going with the new library for multi-view symbols? Yeah, so we're working on them.
Yeah, it's in progress.
The content guys are quite busy at the moment.
Oh yeah.
I'm not interviewing them for a very specific reason. They're busy. Not to say you're not. Can I use this? Jonathan Pickup in the chat asks, can I use this to include details for window and door components, including flashings, and etc.?
Yeah, I mean, you can show basically the 2D detail. You can take like in the video, you'll see the high detailed graphics in there, and those were just copied from a imported DWG file.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
So if they already have their existing like door details, they could even just drop that in.
Yeah.
Really, maybe not all of them, but like if they could. Okay, good. So existing things. Oh, that was another question that I don't think anyone asked. We don't need to draw new things in here, right? We can paste anything we like that we've drawn elsewhere.
Sure.
Okay, so if you've already made the annotations that are this detail, just pop them in there, and then
Exactly.
ta-da! Yeah, and then they keep that in their library, and it's done.
Exactly.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, good. The next one is yes. Okay, good. That's these. The next section we'll go into. Feel free to keep asking questions about the 2D components, but I'm going to move into the level of detail questions now that we already got from the forum. Matt Overton asks if VGM uses this to prioritize low-level details for redraw when moving views. Is this feature used for that?
No, it's not. The VGM has its own tricks for performance. This is not really
Gotcha.
one of them.
Gotcha. The VGM does use tricks to do so. This is just not one of them, I guess. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next one is from, again, apologies for the pronunciation, Elip. From the forums, will the various level of detail states be readable in a worksheet? For instance, can a worksheet be configured to pull more limited information when the hybrid is displaying its low state versus its high state?
No, there's no special calls in worksheets to filter this out.
Okay.
That is something we can explore in the future.
Gotcha. The next one is from the same. The next question is how it exports to IFC. Can they choose the level of detail of what the IFC export is going to contain?
For 2019, no. All the detail levels will export out into IFC and other formats. That is something that we would like to look into adding in the future.
Gotcha. So you could just do IFC low, and it would just, everything that had a low LOD to it would just go that way.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
that's what we're
Not in 2019, but that's what we're thinking.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. The next one is this was a good one, which I didn't even think of at all until I read the question. Was how did the level of detail system work with the high details button for walls?
Okay, the high detail button is a quick pref. So it's a document preference. And you may have noticed in the video that that preference is still there, but it's been renamed auto display detail levels in design layers. And it now allows for 2 different scales to be entered. So if the design layer scale is below that lower scale, it will display automatically the low detail. Objects on layers of scales that fit in between will show medium, and then again for high.
Gotcha. Excellent. Good. So we changed the existing user interface to accommodate for this. We didn't just like say, oh, well, it'll just do whatever it wants.
Right, yeah. So that quick pref button.
So you thought of it, I didn't think. Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, see, the people who know what they're doing, they think of it. The next thing will be from, more from Zoomer. Zoomer asks, what will happen to all this new geometry when you run the convert to group command on a symbol?
Nothing will change there because the design layer environment, you will never see these new 2D components. You'll see either the top plan or the 3D component.
So if you saw the top plan in low and you converted it to group, you'd get the low.
Yes.
Okay, so whatever you were looking at
is what you get.
Okay, and if a viewport that had this in it, when you converted that to lines, for instance, you would just get the 2D component that you were seeing. You wouldn't get the lines of the 3D behind it either because it's gone.
Right.
Okay, good. Excellent. Just clarifying, just make sure. And he asks if we get the level of detail setting generally for all objects in the object info palette. Is it for everything?
Oh, everything, everywhere in Vectorworks?
Everything.
No, it's not.
Okay.
It is constrained to the components of hybrid objects for now. That is something that we've thought about in the future, possibly
expanding to more. Okay.
Yeah.
So if there's any, that's a good point to mention. If there's any portions of Vectorworks that you think this system would work really well on, or if we could just tweak it slightly to get some really good, workable, usable workflows out of it, let us know in the wish list. It's the best place to let us know. He reads it all the time. Yeah. So the next one is from Marcel. He's interested in the 3D level of detail here. He's asking if it would be implemented in all the architectural tools so they could define 3 sets of attributes for one wall, one window, one door. I think he means like open, closed.
Right.
The like stages or states.
Yeah, states.
State. Yeah, that's what we talked about before.
Yeah, that it's really a different thing as far as states are concerned. But as far as level of detail in 3D for plugins, the plugin controls that.
Gotcha.
So the user really doesn't have the control. Plugins could be written to take advantage of detail levels. They could also be written to give users more control over them, but that's not the way it is.
Okay.
In addition to that, the higher level objects like walls, slabs, and roofs, they do have components will have medium and high detail automatically given to them. So that will allow the components to be hidden in low detail.
Okay. So he's probably just thinking a little further into what we could do something with it, but we don't. If you could certainly try, we just don't recommend it at the moment. Yeah. We think, but if you do try to do that and you encounter anything, let us know. Let us know what limitations you hit if you go trying to do that. And it looks like the last question from the forum was Altavec, and it asks, will we be able to control the level of 3D detail displayed in a viewport while using the same scale? For example, can I duplicate a viewport and have one set to high detail and one set to low, even though they're the same scale, for instance, or different scales?
Yeah, we have created a separate control from scale at the viewport level, so you can have any scale and any detail level.
Okay, so the design layer one doesn't override that viewport ever?
No.
That's only the design
separate.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I will check for more questions. I think we are good. That about wraps up this one. I think we are good. Did you have anything else you wanted to mention? Anything they didn't ask about?
I can't think of it except for that I'd love to see when users do get their hands on it,
yes,
how they will come up with different uses for it. So.
Yes, and again, the forum is the best place for troubleshooting once 2019 comes out, anything you like, or any wish list for anything you want us to go further. Thank you for joining us again. We'll be doing the same thing next Tuesday. There'll be a teaser, and then the following Thursday, same time, same day, we'll be doing a Q&A session. Thank you for joining us, and have a good one.